Coming up on Naperville News 17, cannabis sales are back on the table for Naperville. Senior issues get legislative attention at a local town hall. And new IHSA rules are a game changer for high school football. Hello everyone, I'm Kim Pierce. Thanks for joining us for this week's Naperville News. The topic of marijuana made its way back into council chambers, and Naperville News 17's Casey Krajewski was there for the discussion.
After previously leaning towards opting out of recreational adult use cannabis sales, Naperville City Council now wants to keep their options open. They voted at their most recent meeting to direct city staff to come back with information on what opting in would mean for Naperville, such as the cost of enforcement, appropriate hours of operation, and how many dispensaries should be allowed. While some council members have stayed firmly on either side of the debate, others have said they go back and forth and want to see both options before them when they make a decision. Councilman Patrick Kelly, who voted for staff to prepare an opt-out ordinance last month, said he's done a lot of research since that vote.
What I heard and what I read led me to feel quite comfortable in the fact that having a dispensary in the city, in a state that has already legalized marijuana recreationally, would not, in fact, have any negative impacts on that city.
About 20 public speakers addressed the dais on the issue. Some argued opting out would be ceding potential benefits to neighboring communities.
I'm here as a resident of Naperville because I think you're missing the boat on taxes, on zoning, on being able to control what your community can do.
Others said opting in would make it easier for children to acquire the drug.
To allow the marijuana industry to advertise to young people like the tobacco industry and like the alcohol industry has is to willfully harm the young developing minds of this city.
City Attorney Michael DeSanto told council that they don't need a decision by January 1st, when recreational cannabis sales become legal statewide, but the sooner that decision comes, the better. For Naperville News 17, I'm Casey Krajewski.
In a separate agenda item, council heard from a number of public speakers about a drug called kratom. Kratom comes from the leaves of a plant native to Southeast Asia. It's estimated that 2 to 4 million Americans use the drug to treat conditions ranging from anxiety to chronic pain and to curb opioid addiction. The Naperville Liquor Commission unanimously recommended banning kratom last year, but council took no action due to a lack of information about the drug. Several public speakers offered their testimony as to why a ban is the wrong move.
Kratom does not give a high. It helps me focus, it gives me clarity, it manages my chronic pain, helps me find my normal, which is all any chronic pain patient wants, is to feel normal again.
However, those opposing the use of kratom say there is a psychoactive element and the drug is habit-forming. The Food and Drug Administration has listed kratom as a drug of concern and say there's no evidence of any medical use for kratom. Council asked city staff to draft an ordinance restricting the sale of kratom to those 21 and over. Police Chief Bob Marshall says he's not aware of any incident involving kratom in Naperville. The growing problem of e-cigarette use by teens prompted the Let's Talk series, True Effects of Vaping Forum at the Alive Center. Naperville's 360 Youth Services partnered up with District 203's Success Parent Group to put on the event, which informed community members about the harms that come from vaping. The discussion highlighted how e-cigarette companies market their products toward young adults. A report by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says in 2016, 40.6% of e-cigarette ads were on the internet, reaching over 10 million minors. And social media can help the problem spread.
A lot of teens and students such as myself like to post videos and photos of themselves using devices, and it can create curiosity, and it also can create a kind of need for wanting to be cool or wanting, maybe even being bored.
The CDC reported about 150 cases of lung-related illnesses throughout the United States, with a common thread being vaping. 5 of those admissions are from Edward Hospital, according to the Director of Addiction Services at Linden Oaks Behavioral Health, Aaron Weiner. And it could be because of what's found inside of e-cigarettes.
There are a lot of different carcinogens, chemicals, heavy metals that have been found in vaping, and then also secondhand vape aerosol. So just because it doesn't have the same smell as smoke doesn't mean that those chemicals aren't in there.
A Berkeley study found as many as 31 toxic chemicals in e-cigarettes, including some that can cause popcorn lung, which can be fatal in some cases. You may have heard Ribfest was roaming to Romeoville next year. Well, now it's official. The Romeoville Village Board passed a resolution securing their agreement with the Exchange Club of Naperville to move the longtime Naperville Festival to Romeoville. As part of that agreement, residents of Romeoville will get first dibs on main stage entertainment tickets with a chance to buy them 72 hours before the general public and at a discounted rate. Romeoville residents will also not be charged a general admission fee on the day of the fireworks show. The fest will still be 4 days long and will be run by the Exchange Club, though the Village of Romeoville will be handling security and traffic control. And while Ribfest won't be in Naperville this July 4th, there could soon be another event to replace it. Naperville's Salute, Honoring Our Hometown Heroes, is the title of Naperville Response for Veterans' new special event idea. The nonprofit sent in the special event application to the city as a low-cost, family-friendly 4th of July celebration, which would include fireworks.
So I think the whole essence of what we're doing here is trying to bring a more scaled back, more family-friendly, lower-cost, community-centric celebration of the 4th of July back to Naperville.
It would take place on Friday, July 3rd through Saturday, July 4th at Rotary Hill and Naper Settlement, while including a kid craft area, a few local bands, and shuttle buses to get to and from the event. The group anticipates the event could draw nearly 30,000 people each day. The Special Events and Cultural Amenities, or SECA Commission, is reviewing this and all other new special event and grant applications. SECA will meet with event organizers on September 5th to learn more details, including its estimated cost. After the break, there's a new development ahead for Washington Street.
Edward Elmhurst Health presents this Healthy Driven Minute.
And the most important muscle in your body is what? Your heart. So in order to keep that strong throughout your entire life, you want to exercise. Exercising can lower your blood pressure, it can lower your glucose, it can lower your high cholesterol if you have high cholesterol. There's a lot of heart-healthy benefits to exercising. The goal for the average adult would be 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity exercise. And if you were to increase that intensity to a higher intensity, you would aim for 75 minutes per week of exercise. Everybody is different, so everyone might take a little bit of time to determine what their moderate level is, but for most people, this would be a good example of a moderate intensity exercise. You could exercise anywhere. You could exercise at home, you could exercise at work with little to no equipment whatsoever and still get a workout that counts.
For more information, visit eehealth.org.
It was an eventful City Council meeting this week. Besides the marijuana and kratom discussions, the dais addressed a new development coming to Washington Street. The Shops on Washington is a development plan for the intersection of Washington Street and Sycamore Drive. Tartan Realty Group, the developer, is hoping to bring a drive-through coffee shop and 2 multi-tenant retail buildings to the former PNC Bank lot. City Council seemed receptive to the idea.
I was relieved when I saw such a modest development being proposed here. This is such a nice development. It looks so nice, it fits so nicely, it's thoughtful. I love it.
But neighbors are concerned it will bring too much traffic to an area that already has congestion issues.
To say it is difficult to simply enter or exit my driveway is an understatement. To do so at peak travel times, including morning rush hour, evening rush hour, school start and finish, and note there are 2 schools within 1 block of my driveway, church services or events, note there are 2 churches within 2 blocks of my driveway, or anytime traffic is backed up on Washington or 75th Street, often feels like a round of bumper cars.
Council voted 8-1 in favor of the Shops on Washington, but did ask that city staff meet with neighbors to discuss traffic concerns and solutions for the area. Tartan included a traffic study which concluded traffic delays would not increase after the development was completed. Representative Lauren Underwood recently came to Naperville to hear senior citizen concerns. Naperville News 17's Aisha Ashley Hausa takes us to the town hall.
A large crowd filled the room at the 95th Street Library, where Representative Lauren Underwood hosted a town hall to discuss issues faced by senior citizens. A major one brought up by both her and the group of 60 was health care.
Many people have reached out to our office asking for help affording their prescriptions. Sometimes it's really specific. They talk about insulin. Sometimes it's programmatically specific to Medicare, and sometimes it's just like, I can't afford it, we need some help. And so what I want to tell you is this. We've passed this spring a suite of bills to deal with generics, because there were a lot of bad actors in that generic space, so that the generic drugs were starting to be unaffordable for people.
This was helpful to many, but it's not just affording generic drugs that's a struggle for seniors. In most Medicare plans, after a certain amount has been paid out for covered drugs, some fall into a coverage gap, which leads to out-of-pocket costs for users.
By October, I've spent maybe $8,000, and then I'm in the catastrophic category. So October, November, December, I can afford my insulin, but it's a struggle from March to October. I think drug prices are the biggest problem facing my generation.
And Representative Underwood is taking action by working with her colleagues at the House of Representatives to address this issue.
Right now, we're working on Medicare solutions. So those Medicare solutions are things like putting a cap on your out-of-pocket costs. We are also working on legislation to allow for price negotiation out of the department with the drug companies. So that would lower your out-of-pocket costs as well.
Representative Underwood encouraged attendees to reach out to elected officials to ask questions and get their voices heard on issues that concern them. Reporting for Naperville News 17, I'm Aisha Ashley Hausa.
Naperville's was the representative's first of 4 senior town halls. Mundelein, Huntley, and Shorewood residents will also have the chance to give their feedback. 2 Naperville seniors were recently recognized for their contributions to the community. The Naperville Senior Task Force named Ann Henriksen and Jim Kaufman their 2019 Seniors of the Year. Henriksen has been very involved in the community, volunteering at her church, serving as president of Naperville Newcomers and Neighbors, and putting on a prom for 360 Youth Services. She said she loves that spirit of volunteerism.
I think it's the way to go. It keeps you active, lively, and tuned into the community, and it's really good for your heart and soul.
Kaufman was nominated for the little things he does in the senior community. Changing light bulbs, moving furniture, and doing other odd jobs for his peers has kept him active and connected to his fellow seniors.
I feel humble and honored that I am one of the 17,000 senior citizens that live in Naperville. And it's an exciting time for me and for my family.
Mayor Steve Chirico presented each of them with a plaque recognizing their service at the most recent Naperville City Council meeting. The award presentation was held the day before National Senior Citizens Day. A family trip could have taken a turn for the worse, but thanks to CPR, the vacation, and more importantly, a life was saved. Naperville News 17's Christian Kenazal tells us more.
I was on the back patio with my son working on furniture and went to walk into the house, and at that point I went down.
Rudy had just suffered a heart attack while visiting his son in Alabama. After seeing that her husband was unresponsive, Joan called 911 and was told to perform CPR. But Joan's compressions had no effect, so her son, who had taken a CPR class 6 months prior, took over.
And I remember when my son is doing that, one of the things besides saying, please God, and praying was to yell to him, fight. I just kept yelling, fight, Rudy, fight, fight.
Paramedics came and took Rudy to the hospital, where he eventually came to a couple of days later. After coming back home, the Tanks knew it was their son's quick thinking that saved Rudy's life. The unfortunate experience prompted the family to team up with Underwood Hospital to host some CPR courses at the Knox Presbyterian Church.
It felt really good. The first time was very emotional.
Yeah.
And just thinking that my son did that for 8 minutes.
It's hard work.
I can't grasp that.
According to health professionals from Underwood, CPR can double or triple a person's chances of surviving. Over 30 community members were in attendance for the family and friends CPR class to learn the life-saving technique and perhaps some other life lessons as well.
I just have learned to accept the fact that relationships are everything.
Yeah.
That's what this whole world's
Family,
about.
yeah.
And so I just want to revel in those.
Yeah.
For Naperville News 17, I'm Christian Canizal.
The church and Edward Elmhurst Health will host more CPR classes on September 19th and October 17th. Coming up, a historic convoy makes a cross-country stop at Cantini. DuPage County has a new countywide crimes task force. The Metropolitan Emergency Response and Investigation Team, or MERIT Task Force, consolidates the DuPage County Felony Investigative Team and Major Crimes Task Force.
What we wanted to do was we wanted to streamline our services. So what MERIT does, routine patrol is still everybody's routine patrol. That hasn't changed. But anything of large caliber, God forbid a terrorist or a shooting, high caliber incident like that, we will be able to have more cohesive, controlled response.
MERIT also streamlines training, pools equipment, and allows for geographic responsiveness with surrounding police forces.
Since it's coming from a closer geography where the police officers live, you're going to get a quicker response, so it's shorter response times. Also with these combined services, now you're going to get many more people that we could push into a situation if it's cascading, if it's large.
Naperville is one of 36 municipal police departments in DuPage to join the MERIT Task Force. MERIT went live on August 1st, and Sheriff Mendrick says it has already effectively responded to 4 call-outs that have worked out very well. The Naperville Police Department presented a collection of donated items to Family Shelter Service of Metropolitan Family Services DuPage. This is the 5th year the MPD has included a donation drive as part of National Night Out, which is where residents of around 45 Naperville neighborhoods brought donations. A different organization is chosen each year, and Family Shelter Service was 2019's beneficiary.
We really value our partnership with the Naperville Police Department. We've been working with them closely for over 20 years. In fact, every time their officers go out on a domestic call, they follow up with us after the call to allow us the opportunity to then follow up with each victim and offer our services and get them connected with the services they need.
Some items on the wish list included diapers, shampoo, and paper towels.
These communities really thought of our clients who often leave home with nothing, but maybe their children and a small bag. This will be extremely meaningful to them.
Family Shelter Service wants survivors to know there are resources for them, and if they reach out, they will get help. If you'd like to donate to the shelter, you can drop off items at 605 East Roosevelt Road in Wheaton. The latest Naperville Park District meeting had commissioners raising the bar for those who served. Naperville News 17's Casey Krajewski shares how.
Gregory Kantz can't do as many pull-ups now as he could when he was an active duty Marine, but he's helping others find meaning in the exercise.
What we do is we put up pull-up bar memorials and honor the fallen. Something a little different than a tree or a bench. It's actually a set of pull-up bars, so that becomes the memorial. We encourage people to come out and do pull-ups in honor of the fallen.
Pull-up bars for Patriots raised their first bars in Wheaton, but with the help of the Naperville Park District, the next set is planned for Wolf's Crossing Community Park. The gold star beneath the bars and stone memorial alongside them serve as reminders of their meaning.
People know what they're being encouraged to do pull-ups for. It's not just the pull-up bar to do pull-ups, or kind of gives them a little encouragement. Well, I don't want to do any pull-ups, but if I'm doing them for somebody, it kind of gives you a reason or a cause behind it.
Pull-up Bars for Patriots is even hoping to roll out an app so that you can keep track of how many pull-ups have been done for the service members each site is dedicated to.
The bars will cost just under $20,000, which the Park District is splitting 50-50 with community donors. They're expected to be complete along with the park's Phase 1 construction next summer. Performing pull-ups with a purpose. For Naperville News 17, I'm Casey Krajewski.
The nonprofit is also planning on putting pull-up bar memorials in Elmhurst and Aurora. A military vehicle convoy recently passed through DuPage County. Our own Christine Lena caught up with the drivers at one of their stops.
A cross-country road trip takes just a few days at today's pace, but imagine how long it took 100 years ago. Well, in 1919, the U.S. Army's first motor convoy set out from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco along the Lincoln Highway. To commemorate the 100th anniversary of that trip, the Military Vehicle Preservation Association embarked on the very same path.
They set out to do this convoy to assess the possibility of moving an army from one side of the United States to the other. And back 100 years ago, there wasn't much in the roads, and it was tough going for them. It took them 65 days. It's going to take us 35 days.
Cantini recently welcomed the convoy of historic military vehicles, including trucks, ambulances, jeeps, and motorcycles. It was a pit stop at about a quarter of the way through their 3,000-mile journey.
At 25 miles an hour, you get to see a lot of the United States of America that you don't see on the interstate at 70 miles an hour.
And while the owners got to talk about their vehicle's legacy, they got to learn about Cantini's too.
We do have 2 vehicles here, including one of ours, that would have been vehicles in the original convoy 100 years ago. We have the 1918 Dodge Touring over there, which is an actual military model that's been restored, and it's in great shape. And then we have our Class B standardized military truck. It's called a Liberty truck for short, and ours is a 1918, and there were 22 of those on the convoy.
Each vehicle has been restored and maintained by their national and international owners from the MVPA.
And we have a really good group of individuals. We're pretty tight-knit, and we help each other out. We network. If someone's looking for parts, we help. Vehicles, we're always on the lookout. We're always, when we're driving around, we're always looking for something green and rusty everywhere we go.
Aside from the love for military motors, the camaraderie built among the group makes the transcontinental trip all worth it.
Whenever I get lonesome, I just hold a grand review of people, places, and military vehicles that I knew. I can hear the songs and stories, feel the campfire blaze as I relive the glory of my grand old convoy days. Ooh-ah!
Reporting for Naperville News 17, I'm Christine Lena.
The convoy is slated to arrive in San Francisco by September 14th. And if you're interested in learning more about the Military Vehicles Preservation Association and their journey, you can check out their website. Up next, if you like a later tea time, you'll be a big fan of Glow Ball.
One of our core values at Red Arrow is to support the local community. We support local breweries, but we also support local charities. And each month we select a local charity to be our charity tap of the month. Every time an ounce is poured out of that tap, we donate 5 cents back to that local charity. It's a great program to really involve the local community and also local breweries as well.
Thanks, Joe and Red Arrow.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Warm yellow hues stretch across the sky above Naperville. The sun is setting here at Naperville Golf Course. Even the most lackadaisical golfer is finding pep in their step, trying to beat the descending darkness. The shadows stretch across the tee box, the carts are in for the night, and yet tee time is still nearly 90 minutes away for some.
The ones that have been here before are very excited to come back. The ones that haven't been here really don't understand what's about to happen.
Don Harshaw is responsible for this glow ball scramble at Naperville. And while players are wrapping up rounds, a group of 72 golfers are eating a meal in the clubhouse before the night ahead of them.
We buy a bunch of equipment for it, which is equipment that we use at night, obviously. So we're using glow sticks, we're using, we call them beacons, but what they do is like at an airport, where you see a beacon going off and on. We utilize those. We also use glow balls, which are actually balls that light up once they're hit for about 5 minutes.
Debbie and Scott Wolf have been here before. They're regulars at Naperville, hooked by their first experience with glow ball.
Fun. I just had a lot of fun. It was a beautiful night. The stars were out, the moon was out. It was just a different experience.
Being out here without anybody else, it's fantastic. And watching the balls fly, it looks like meteors going through the sky. It's awesome out here.
And we do have some sprinklers that we have to work around, so we do have to get done at a certain time tonight. And I'll let you know when we're getting close. It's the atmosphere itself, because it's very, very dark, and you're hitting a golf ball that's glowing into a location that you really can't see where it's going.
Green glow sticks line the runway up to the green. Blue lights signify the tee boxes, and every golfer has a flashing glow light with their bright golf balls streaking down the fairway. The glow ball scramble is the latest reason for the Wolves to make a trip to the course.
Beautiful!
A pastime that started 30 years ago.
It was actually your father that got me into golf. I was a fisherman and was one of those guys that said you'd never catch me dead on a golf course until I started playing. And once I did, I was amazed at how much I love the game. It's addicting.
We love the people. My dad used to work here. He has a bench on hole number 1, and it's just like a place where we know them and they know us. We're comfortable.
If you want to follow suit and would like to give glow ball a try, how about some advice?
When you go out, just go out to enjoy yourself. Don't go out to be very competitive, because it's a different ball game at night.
Oh, just hit the ball. Watch it fly. Just have fun.
Nothing like golfing when the brightest light around is the moon. Reporting for Naperville News 17, I'm Kevin Jackman.
And if you have an idea for a sports story feature, please let us know at newstips@nctv17.com. A new rule in football this year could have some unintended consequences, according to some Naperville parents. Naperville News 17's Christian Kenizal has the story.
Illinois High School Association Policy 13 will include several changes to the gridiron this year. But the key rule is players cannot play on consecutive days. The recommendation came from IHSA's Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, which they believe will make the game safer.
It's a good thing to have limitations in football, simply so a young person in high school doesn't play too much football, put themselves in more chances of injury or potential head injury, more exposure to the contact, so to speak, puts them in more of a risk to get injured, and nobody wants that.
Naperville parents echoed IHSA sentiments in regards to player safety, but say the rule has unintended consequences. Since players cannot play on back-to-back days, some teams from the DuPage Valley Conference have rescheduled their junior varsity games to be played on Monday instead of Saturday.
If the game's at 4:30 and it's a road game, the student has to come out of school early, potentially to take the bus trip. Parents need to leave work early in order to get to a game that may be an hour away. And the rest of the team's not there to support them like they would be on a Saturday.
Killips and others have started an online petition that has garnered nearly 1,500 signatures at the time of this recording, calling for changes. But IHSA said Policy 13 will not change this year. However, they will gather data this season to see the impact of the rule on players' wellness. For Naperville News 17, I'm Christian Kenizal.
Killips hopes to gather more signatures and get coaches' feedback on Policy 13 and present the recommendations to IHSA later this year. And that's what's happening right here in your neighborhood, Naperville. We'll see you next week. Until then, you can catch up on local news by signing up for our NCTV 17 news update delivered right to your inbox Monday through Friday. Sign-up information is right on our website, nctv17.com.
This week's Naperville News 17 is brought to you in part by the following sponsors. program is partially funded by a grant from the City of Naperville.